It's a theory. It's a Chris. It's a theory. Chris's crazy theory. Aha! They look like alien sunglasses.
Yeah, and I can't see out of them, so this is not going to last.
Welcome to my world.
So I might have to take them off for now. But joke landed. But yes, so you bring up a great point about the cemetery. So just so we catch up the audience, what part we're talking about. They're having this conversation because it's also a good idea when you're in a cemetery during a zombie outbreak to just stop and talk. You don't want to just like move quickly through it, right? You want to stop and have a detailed conversation.
Of course, because that makes sense. Yeah, like get into the cemetery in the first place.
Right, exactly. So if you look at the first screen, just to catch the audience up, this is the part where they're talking and then a zombie breaks through the ground and, grabs the leg of the reporter. So we know that the T virus requires an injection, like our buddy the rabbit from the first movie will kindly demonstrate for us. Thank you, Mr. Rabbit. So it requires an injection or like a fluid transmission from a bite, right? Mm-hmm. But let's think about this for a moment. The cemetery, the corpses in the cemetery, they're all in coffins. So there's no fluid transmission that's getting through. There's no one biting them. There's no evidence. We don't see any of the zombies digging underground or anything like that. Like if we go back to the beginning, like the ground was perfectly solid until they broke through. So
I've seen Return of the Living Dead, but I didn't see any rainstorms.
I didn't see any rainstorms.
Didn't see the weather forecast. In fact, there was a weather forecast. It was sunny, wasn't it?
It was hot, which explains why Alice and Jill had.
How could they get that wrong?
But it doesn't explain why there would be some sort of fluid transmission to activate these zombies that were in coffins, right? So let's think about this. Maybe it somehow leaked into the ground. Well, actually, if we look back at the first movie, they were very clear to show that the hive was intentionally buried underground, more than 2,000 feet underground, just to avoid such a situation like this. So the T virus can't have gotten into the ground or the groundwater or anything like that. So that doesn't explain it, right? So I started to look further. The zombies in the cemetery look different than the zombies in the rest of the world. They're considerably slower for sure, and they're more decomposed.
Fresh.
What's that?
They're not as fresh. The ones in the city are kind of fresh, doesn't just kill.
Exactly. So there's something different about them. And there's another example. That one's a little bit harder to see, but they're more decomposed for sure than the zombies we see in the rest of the movies. This is a little better example. This woman must have died recently. She looks okay. But the other ones are definitely more decomposed and slower.
Also, wouldn't the embalming process kind of throw a spanner in the works?
How so?
They don't have any of their organs or fluids.
Right. Yeah.
It's also, exactly. I think it's almost a legal requirement, isn't it?
So you're helping me. I like this.
That's not what I'm about to do. Oh, shit.
Right. So it couldn't have been fluid transmission. So something is different is going on with these cemetery zombies. Also, they're much slower. If you notice the zombies in the streets, like these guys, they were much quicker than the ones that we see in the cemetery.
You ever slept for like 12 hours, just conked out, and then you wake up and you're a bit groggy?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So
but I'm
years in the coffin, you know what I mean? Yeah, that'd be kind of.
Oh, you're saying they just needed to stretch a little bit more?
Yeah, and you just dug yourself out. They need to stretch a bit. Come on, give them a break.
Well, I did some research and I looked at all of the zombies that we've seen in the movies, and I calculated their speed, their walking speed. Some are faster than others. Sometimes we see them moving quickly.
What's the average walking speed of a zombie?
I'm glad.
And the Resident Evil. Is this zombies of all time or just the Resident Evil?
No, just the first two movies.
Are we going to get a comparison between the average walking speed of zombies between franchises?
I haven't done that yet. We may look for that in a future video.
Later.
In the first two movies of all the zombies is 1.14 miles per hour, or I know you're going to ask, 1.83 kilometers per hour. That's for our international friends or you metric buffs out there. So that's the zombies that we see throughout the movies. But the ones in the cemetery, and here's an example of how they can move very quickly, like towards the end of the movie when they're attacking major game.
The fresh ones?
Right, the fresh ones. You see them swarming and they can move obviously much quicker. So the ones in the cemetery cemetery, I measured it. It was 0.59 miles per hour, less than half, or 0.95 kilometers per hour. So these zombies are definitely different. So your point is that maybe they need to stretch a little bit more because they just
cardio.
a little more cardio, which is something that I've heard many times about myself. It wasn't just the fact that they were slower, they were weaker as well. As demonstrated in this picture, Jill and Alice were able to beat the shit out of all of them, whereas the zombies in the background are slowly moving towards them, which we don't see in any of the other scenes with any of the other zombies the rest of the movie. So clearly these zombies are different. And here's an example. She just casually back kicks this one, while the other zombies are in the cemetery are just moping around. They're not aggressive. They're not looking for blood like we see in the rest of the movies.
I can't believe she stopped off in an army surplus stores and they were the treasures she picked. Like, they weren't very robust.
Yeah, well, you know.
Like, both legs get ripped off by the end of the movie. Or is that them just not liking Mila Jovovich wearing clothes?
Well, she did say it was hot, you know. So, you know, when it's 90-degree heat, you want to make
There's
sure
a double
that,
entendre there.
that is true.
Oh, don't get overexcited.
Oh, no. That's what happens when I get excited. My hat blows off. But the point is that these zombies are clearly different than the rest of the movie. All right. Again, another example how slow they were. The entire team towards the top of the shot, they were able to just casually move off. Not a single one of the team was actually hurt during this because these zombies were slow, and they're definitely different. And I started to think about, why are they so different? This is the best example here. Look at this poor guy, right? This guy, it says, had died in 1917. So this is my final piece of evidence that the cemetery zombies were not the same as the T-virus zombies that we see. All right. In the first movie, the Red Queen tells us how the T-virus works. And I quote, "Even in death, the human body still remains active. Hair and fingernails continue to grow. New cells are produced, and the brain itself holds a small electrical charge that takes months to dissipate. The T-virus provides a massive jolt both to cellular growth and to those trace electrical impulses." So that means that after a few months, those trace impulses are gone and the virus shouldn't work. So why would the virus be able to work on a poor sucker like this guy who died in 1917? And the reason is, say it with me, Alice and friends just happened to stumble upon a regular run-of-the-mill zombie apocalypse while walking in a cemetery at night. Talk about your bad luck.
Pesky zombie apocalypses getting in with a T-virus apocalypse. God, when all these apocalypses combine, what can I say? It's disaster. There you go, folks.